Good morning, everyone. It's July 1st. How the time flies. Anyways, I hope you all enjoy your first day of July. It's a wonderful welcoming. Another new day to begin a new practice, another day to ask yourself what kind of magical miracles can happen today, another day to find forgiveness in your heart for anything that you've created or experienced in others that has hurt you. I wanted to first begin my message today on something I was listening to last night. It was Dolores Cannon. A lot of you who know me know that I did receive my training from her years ago. And so something prompted me to listen to her give a little talk. But it wasn't that talk. It was something else. I said, no, this isn't the right one. It was her. It was an interview with her daughter, Julia. And it was shortly after Dolores had passed. But it was the reminder of how Dolores was always trying to teach her clients to let things go. Because she had pointed out that cancer, most of the time, was created from anger inside you. And it would emerge in different places. And like, for instance, sometimes if we look up in different books, the symbolism of having maybe stomach cancer or, bladder cancer. Bladder cancer might be, the ability to let things go easily. But I mean, you could read into it. There's a lot of books on it. I know Louise Hay had talked about different symptoms in the body and what they might mean to you about letting things go. But I know deep within our heart, it's really hard to let things go that have really hurt us. There might be something so heinous as maybe somebody has murdered our child. There might be something so heinous as maybe a surgery gone bad by a malicious surgeon. There's so many acts of atrocity that we must bear witness to or experience that it is very hard to let go. And I've found the easiest way to let go is to first understand what was the purpose for it in our lives. Like, for instance, say, I think I've brought it up in other sessions that we've done on these live AMs, but the person who maybe loses their child to a drunk driver, somebody that's been drunk driving for years, has had many accidents, and this accident, this one that might have happened just to that person, killed their own son. The son wasn't drinking. Of course, the other driver had still been drinking, hadn't given it up. And sometimes we'd see that person, the parents of the child whom they lost to the drunk driver, go on like stage, like maybe it's Oprah Winfrey or one of those shows, and forgiving the driver, forgiving the drunk driver. And it's so important to do because what it releases in you is incredible. And it's not saying that we can do it in a second or do it in an hour or do it in a lifetime. It's just even acknowledging that we should try to not do it so much for everybody else but for ourselves. Because when we have peace within ourselves about different experiences, it's amazing how much better we feel. And I've always found for myself that most times we go through these experiences for us to not hold on to the anger, but to help others understand how we've let go of it. Because we cannot help anyone with anything until we've experienced through ourselves and emerged on the other side. What do I mean by emerging on the other side? I mean being able to share and help someone get through something because you got through there too. Like, do we want to listen? Have you ever found you don't want to listen to somebody who will try and teach you how to do something but hasn't actually done it themselves? It's almost like they're just talking in a monotonous tone. But somebody that's been through something can teach you so easily because they're teaching from experience. Their words become words that even a 5-year-old would understand. They'll tell it to you almost like in a story. But I wanted to now go on and just read what Orrin had to say. And it talks of forgiving others does not mean that you need to do anything or take any action. It is an attitude of love that does not judge or condemn. Forgiving others does not mean condoning or approving of their behavior, nor does it mean that you need to feel superior. Forgiving others releases the negative energy within you and frees you to love as your soul. Every time you choose love, you are a winner. As you forgive others, your body grows healthier, you feel better about yourself, and you have more energy to put into yourself and your life. So what does that mean for you? That means forgiving yourself, those kind of things, or forgiving others. Think about even trying to control your children and tell them what to do, even if they're older, younger. I don't mean like, of course, when they're, we have to, tell them not to touch the hot stove, that they can burn their fingers. We want to do certain things to keep them from that. But as they grow older and wiser, we have to allow them to make their own choices and just observe, even though there's a part of us that wants to show them the right and wrong way to do things. But how will they ever know unless they too experience it for themselves and also emerge from the other side of, oh, it would have been better if I had done it that way. I could have learned more if I had just, been maybe a little kinder in my thoughts, moved a little slower, and been a little bit more methodical in my movements. Have a little more grace instead of pushing through something, right? But that's what it takes. It takes us all time to understand the value of experience of the self, experiencing in our own way. So back to the forgiveness of self, forgiveness of others. I have always felt, and I know I've talked about it before, that it's our own thoughts that create scenes before us. And that's why if we don't forgive ourselves for the creation before us, that we might have been co-creator in it because we are creators, that the scenes will keep repeating. Even if, say, we're in a job and we leave that job because we're tired of the way, our coworkers are, we're tired of the way they treat us, we're tired of the way they act, we're tired of the way the company is run, we'll go into a new job and we'll find that we experience the same things. It's because we are the creator. And it's not to get upset about it, it is to understand it within yourself and understand, what is this trying to teach me? Sometimes it might be like in a position of being employed by an employer. It might be to teach you maybe to just stay focused on your own work and not worry so much about what everyone else is doing. Just be the example of a good work ethic. And because if we have people around us who are chit-chatting and we feel they might be disturbing our work, and it bothers us, it's going to make it happen more. So we are better to be still. Like they teach us if we're, in maybe the woods somewhere, like on the mountains, and we run into a bear, and we have a fear, or we give it energy, or we have any concern at all about the bear might come at us. But if we're still and calm, it might just go the other direction. Like we feel others on certain vibrations. And like I said, there's always a lesson to learn. Just like the bee. Think about the bee buzzing. It doesn't bother you unless you're bothered by it. So we are best to leave the bees alone. Anyways, so I did want to get a little deeper into our discussion because I was reminded during a medium session I had with a client yesterday, and it was so lovely. The gentleman that came through, he was just so at ease. There was such a peacefulness about this gentleman that came through, and he was just kind of like the guide for this woman, and it was just to help answer some questions that she had. But he had been in her life, but it was just the grace upon which he walked. I remember the scene. I could see the clean cutness of his hair from the back of him as he was going out a door. I hadn't seen his face yet. And it was just the way he was he was ready to work outside, but he was so impeccably dressed. Not in like a suit and tie, but just his pants were clean and ironed. His shirt fit him well. His belt fit his pants well. There was nothing falling down or uneasy, and just the way he put on a nice vest to be a little bit warm. And just the way he was going outside to just feed the hens outside, and just the grace he had in his hands, the warmth, the feeling of love in just his hand as he was handing out the seeds to the the hens that were outside. It touched me deeply. It's like, wow, this man, you could already feel he's here to teach about the grace of movement, the grace of speech, and even in the way he spoke. He was a very educated man, but not an arrogant man. He was just very kind and gentle in his movements. And it's interesting because I found that people like that come forward to assist one of my clients, it's usually, of course, it's going to more than likely be somebody they know that's passed on, which is fine. But they are there to, just as they were in this life, when they were here in present, form and body and alive, they were trying to help them, but by being the teacher that is the example, not the teacher that forces you to learn. I shared a piece today, and it was something I had written back in 2012, and I don't need to go on to read it, but I know I started it out with Albert Einstein, one of his thoughts, and it was about how he doesn't teach his children, don't, quote me verbatim, but he does provide the tools in which they can learn. And that thought this morning in the reading I did last night for someone, it was so on point with this gentleman who came forward. He was the perfect example of how a gentleman is and how he doesn't try and teach or force, I shouldn't say, or he doesn't judge another for them not being as graceful as he is. He was a man's man and everything in that way, but he didn't have to prove that he was. He was gentle in his speech. He was gentle in his movements. And he did well in life. He was just a good example set before us all on how we can be towards one another without telling others how to be. And so in the piece I shared that I'd written, over 10 years ago, it was about even the example of painting a fence. If you've ever painted a fence and, had to learn how to do it, we understand we got to scrape the fence. We get to, make sure it's maybe even sanded down in certain areas, depending on how old the fence is or how much paint has been layered upon it and how well of a job we want to do. But, we also have to, prep the fence. And before we even go ahead and paint on the fence, we also have to make sure the wood is dry, because the paint will only buckle if we, go to apply paint to it. It'll just buckle in, that season. Because the wood's not dry, we need something dry and something porous that's going to absorb the paint. But when we teach someone else that, especially a child, we might allow them to have their own little paint bucket, with a little paintbrush. I remember doing that, especially with my daughter. She always used to like to help mom. But I didn't tell her so much how she was doing it wrong as I was just doing the strokes and with the up and down movement or the side to side, depending on the way the wood was positioned. And eventually she just kind of picked it up. Oh, side to side, that's the easiest way to do it, instead of, when they're children, they just kind of go around in circles or just any way that gets the paint up there. But it is, if you allow someone the space to grow, eventually they will either follow suit or maybe find their own way. And their way is their way. It's allowing them to be an individual, which is not always easy when you have children, because you really want them to, you want the best for them. you don't want them to go through the struggles that you might have. So we want to kind of straighten them out to go the right way. But there is no right way. There is no wrong way. It's all the way for each one of us to go through. So back to the forgiveness. What are some things that you could forgive within yourself that you've created? Things maybe that didn't go right. Maybe it was an employer who you feel just didn't treat you well, or didn't respect you, or didn't give you a good shot, didn't give you an opportunity to just give it one more time. Like what, or it could be anything. What is there in you that you can still feel in your solar plexus area, that almost like your stomach's in a knot when you talk about it, like it almost, you can start feeling it bind up, like, or, almost like a tightness in your stomach. What is it that you can't just breathe down through your sacral area and let it go, like you would just let anything go? Like in a woman, it would be to give birth, to let go, to release. What is it that you can't let go of? Find some things within yourself, even just one thing, and maybe work on that. And if it's too painful to work on, find something else. It doesn't have to be so heavy as something you blame another for. It could just be something as simple as, I don't know, maybe a little fender bender you might have had, a little accident. Maybe you just weren't paying attention. You were texting on your phone where, maybe it wasn't that you text on the phone all the time, but you've been trying to tell yourself not to do it, but you had been expecting an important call. Maybe it was somebody coming out of surgery or whatever it may be. And that one time you go to reach your phone, it did cause a little fender bender, and you have guilt or you feel bad, you knew better, that kind of thing. But it's okay. It's just an experience. And sometimes when we have an experience like that, it's maybe so much not about us, but to show us to allow others grace and space for something we feel that they've done incorrectly or they should have known better, There's that great passage. I don't know the Bible well, but there is that great passage in the Bible. It says, like I said, don't ever quote me because I don't know if I'd get it word for word, but it is about forgive them. Jesus is on the cross and he's like, forgive them, Father, for they do not know what they do. And it's really true. Think on those things that we've done that we really just didn't know. And maybe it got brought up yesterday. Think on the times that there have been maybe, let's go back to the thing that was brought up yesterday in a discussion. It was, like a job. Say a job that we know that we've done it many, many years, and maybe it is we cook for a living. We've gotten so used to doing everything we do, whether it's a recipe, whether it's, even cooking eggs on a grill, we can almost do it blindfold. We know the certain timing of it, like a dance. Like if you ever watch people who dance really well, they're not thinking so much. They're in the harmony of the rhythm of the dance. They are just in step with themselves. But someone who comes to do anything well, like cook, even if it's flipping an egg over at just the right time to make it over light, over medium, over hard, they have a dance that they've developed within themselves unknowingly, because not only can they flip the eggs at the right time, but they know when the toast is ready. They know when the pancakes on the other grill are ready. They know when the pies in the oven are also ready. They know all those things because they've had a lot of practice, and it's become a part of them. It's a part of what they put before them becomes them. So someone else comes along, and maybe they've never even cracked an egg. And we're just so surprised. We're like, what? They don't even know how to crack an egg? And in a sense, we don't know that we are to forgive them, for they do not know what they do. And it's to allow them the space to learn how to even do something as simple as cracking an egg. I remember learning how to crack an egg. And, and I learned by a wonderful woman named Edna, where you could watch her, she could crack an egg on a grill with one hand. She could just tap it, one hand, drop it, and it was just perfect. It wasn't broken. It would be like the perfect shaped egg. She knew how to hold that egg when it dropped just above the grill, just so far, so it would be perfect. And eventually I was able to start doing that, but it took time and it took practice, but never ever did she look at me like, what, you don't know how to do that? She was a really great teacher, a really great example of teaching me how to do, cook. I mean, my mom did too, but, when somebody works in a kitchen all their lives, you'll learn a great deal about paying attention, about being aware. And it's not that she was teaching so much awareness, it's just that she was the symbol of what it means to cook and be a cook. She just already had all those attributes within her, unknowingly to her probably. But she was a great teacher. So let's go back to the forgiveness, because it really is important to let go of being upset with others about their behavior or what they've done to you, or maybe something you've done to them that you feel bad about it. You do no one any justice, especially yourselves, when you hold yourself in trouble for something, or you charge yourself with your own weapons. It's all honestly, it is all honestly an illusion. And the only way it becomes true for you is the longer you hold a belief in it. And I know that in other sessions I've brought up something as simple as our belief in Santa Claus, that we truly do believe that there is a Santa Claus when we're a young child, which develops into understanding that, the understanding that we, in a sense, become Santa Claus as we become the adult. We become, at first, the child who believes in something, to helping our own children, realize as they get older that there is no Santa Claus. But we, in a sense, had to be what we didn't believe in. It's a really interesting concept, but what if we kind of took that concept into other things that we believe in, and also have to understand that it was our belief that caused it to be in existence. So let's don't give so much to everything. Don't make it so hard on yourselves and so hard on others. Give yourself and others a chance to just learn as you have. Just experience as you have. Just be loving and kind. And in any moment when you can feel something that triggers in you, like an unkindness, like maybe you're upset by another's behavior, to really look deep inside yourself. Why does it upset you? What is it about it that upsets you as an individual? It's not anything to do with what they're doing, but what is it about you that you could grow and learn in yourselves? So if you have any comments or anything you'd like to share, please do on my Facebook page. It gives everyone a space to kind of jump in and see that they're not the only one that looks upon themselves with, judging others or not accepting their behavior. There's always something to learn before others who we are not in acceptance with. So let us find some grace in ourselves, find some grace in others, and as I always help everyone see, remember, even in the worst of what we think is the worst of a situation or in another, there is always a speck of light to focus on. And I want to bring up one more thing, because I didn't know so much about Mr. Rogers, because I grew up in a family that was not the cool thing to watch. But I think I learned more about him as I got older, that he was really cool, that what a good man. But I love how the story of how he was telling his mother's advice when he was watching out the window of where they lived, and something bad had happened. I think they lived in some kind of apartment complex or something like that, and he was looking out the window and something bad had happened. And his mother's advice was to just don't pay attention so much to what has happened Instead, look for the helpers. Watch how the helpers come around. And to me, that was like a perfect example of how the helpers are like the speck of light that we can't see when everything seems amiss or everything seems a big trouble. Like if we focus on the good or the calm or the peace, it'll all of a sudden become brighter. And we'll all of a sudden understand that even something as horrible as, I still remember it, the tsunami that happened in Indonesia. I do believe it was, I know I was living in Myrtle Beach at the time, and I still remember because it was right around Christmas time. I think it was right after, the day after Christmas. And all those lives that were lost, it was over 100,000, tingling just talking about it. And you'd hear the stories about people who, they couldn't hold on to their children, like there was just too strong of a force, and they lost their children, they lost people they loved, but the light of the moment, and as sad as all that was to have happened, gosh, I wouldn't envy anyone who had to live through something like that. But the light was how it made people come together. Neighbors who forgot why they weren't talking to each other anymore. They just came together. People who didn't even know anyone there, they just gave in ways they could. You had droves of people going to just volunteer, even if they didn't even know how to volunteer. They just knew with all their heart and soul it could have been me. They realized in a place like that was like a prime vacation area, that they, like those families, it could have just as well been them. When we can put ourselves in a feeling or a space of that example, all blame is gone. And why? Because there's no one to blame. So sometimes we need situations like that to remind us that no matter what is happening, no matter how horrible it is, to find a way to look for the way of light, the way that can be of assistance and not judging. Like once something's already happened, we can't control it, but we can be the light, we can be the calm, we can be the peace, we can be the way that shows others the light. Well, that is all I have for today. But like I said, again, if there's anything that you have any questions on, anything that you want to bring forth, please share. I love you all. Have a wonderful first day of July. Just a wonderful day. Have it this day and on each and every day and in each and every moment. And remember, each and every moment is truly yours to choose to have. I love you.